Hey everyone, Katie Sergeant Steele here, and today I am back with another unit review, and we are talking about the Leman Russ Vanquisher. This poor model, I gotta say, is actually probably one of the cooler Leman Russ variants in terms of its aesthetics. I love the giant cannon on it. I know a lot of people who actually run the battle cannon variant with this attachment on it instead, just because it looks cooler, right? But this poor model, and the reason I say that is because it has been an underperforming unit for a very long time in Warhammer 40,000 throughout so many editions. But today, it's not too bad, and so we're going to talk about it and give it its justice here in a unit review. So let's get on with it. Its stats: it is movement 10, toughness 11, 2-up save, 13 wounds, leadership 7, 3 OC. I have done enough of these Leman Russ reviews now. I am not going to repeat that this unit's really tough, and it could desperately hold an objective if you need it to. Okay, fine. Onward. Let's talk about its main cannon. So here we have the Vanquisher Battle Cannon. It is a heavy weapon, so that's important to note. That means if you stay still, you get +1 to your hit roll. Ooh, not too many weapons in the Guard actually really have the heavy ability, especially on vehicles, so that is key to making this work. It is 72-inch range. One shot. Ballistic skill 4, strength 18, -4, d6 +6 damage. This thing will shred enemy armor if it can hit it. So that's the issue, right? It's ballistic skill 4. You could make it hit on 3s if you stayed still. Then you bring in a Scout Sentinel for daring recon, and you're re-rolling 1s, hitting on 3s, but as we all know, you're gonna roll some 2s. And maybe even a lot of 2s, just because the dice gods do not like you. So that can be a very frustrating thing about this unit. But let's talk about what makes it special real quick, and then we'll dive into its tactics. Its unit ability is called Tank Killer. Each time this model makes a ranged attack with its Vanquisher Battle Cannon that targets a monster or vehicle unit, you can re-roll the wound roll. Now that's not too bad. It does d6 +6 damage. So if you roll 1 or 2, you could re-roll it, and you're still guaranteed a minimum 7 damage. You could get up to 12 damage, which would just destroy most vehicles outright. So that's really good. This cannon does an amazing job at eliminating those units. It doesn't get past their invulnerable saves, so that can be a challenge. But if you hit, if they fail their save, which AP -4 in case they don't have an invuln save is pretty gnarly, that means at best they're going to save on 6s. That's pretty good. Your issue comes down to just hitting. Now already, just with daring recon and its innate abilities, you're hitting on 3s, re-rolling 1s if you stayed still. That's another part of the problem, is moving is so critical. So what you could do with this is a number of options. One, you could have a tank commander give it take aim. If it stayed still, had take aim, you're hitting on 2s and then daring recon, re-rolling 1s. That's nearly, but not quite, nearly a guaranteed hit. And we all love a guaranteed hit. There are several ways in Guard that you can hit on 2s, usually that same scenario there with the Guard. So it's really wonderful to kind of have that option available. But that's a lot of points investment for a single shot that could be saved, right? Your opponent could just be like, haha, I got a 5-up invuln. Boop. Oh, made it. Boop. Made it. Boop. Made it. And then 5 turns later in the game, you've done no damage. That happens. That, right? To throw statistics out the window, sometimes your opponent just rolls amazing and you get unlucky. And that can occur. So you can help it hit. And really, I think that's the key here. Or recognizing that it has other weapons. Right? So you may not really get to use its special ability. But the good part about this currently is a very cheap Leman Russ, I think, because of the nature of the vehicle. So with that means you could have the multi-meltas or heavy flamers and the last cannon to still hunt down enemy vehicles. And you're still going to do a lot of damage just with those 3 weapons if you hit and wound. I have taken out so many things with multi-meltas. They're really awesome. In case you're not aware, they are Melta 2. 18-inch range, 2 shots, ballistic skill 4, strength 9, -4, d6 damage. So that means you could get up to a d6 +2 damage with Melta. And with the 2 shots, and you get 2 of them, that's 4 shots. So you're hitting twice. You're probably wounding at least once, and then getting that damage through if your opponent doesn't have an invuln save. If you get 2 of these through, you could devastate your opponent. So something good to keep in mind. And it's not just the main cannon. So we got to think about it differently. For really low points, you get a lot out of it still. It is a Leman Russ, it is very durable. You definitely do not want this vehicle in melee combat, and you will want to screen it and protect it. So what I think this best is used for is a midfield and backfield vehicle that kind of sits behind your line but gets good angles of fire, and then you buff it. I mean, with the 72-inch range on the Vanquisher cannon, it's going to reach out and touch somebody. And touch somebody in a way they don't want to be touched. Remember, consent is important. But here, we're talking about war. Destroy the enemy. So reach out, blow up their vehicles and monsters, and then just smile at them. Mourn with them. I just did a video about being a good sportsman. So do watch that video in case you don't pick up on my sarcasm here. And so that's where I think this unit's going to play its best role, is in that midfield and backfield. And your opponent definitely isn't going to want to get anything big near it either. It's not going to do good at clearing hordes. It's really a one shot and kind of done. It targets big, huge monsters and vehicles. It's not going to do great against Terminators. It's not going to do great against infantry or other elites. Typically, it's going to do good against monsters and vehicles. So that's where you'll want to focus your shots with this and make sure that it gets its use there in that manner. And overall, I think it's a really fun concept. I really like this idea of like one armored piercing shell just kind of reaching out and just obliterating your opponent. And that's really what this does. Except the downside is really just invulnerable saves and hitting. That's always a tough thing, and I really think we need to be cognizant of the amount of points that we're investing, like Scout Sentinel plus Leontis or a tank commander, just to get this thing to hit. Right? That's a lot of investment in points. And then that begins to negate how cheap the Vanquisher is. So I think what we need to do is instead just use it more bare bones, maybe Daring Recon at best, because I love Scout Sentinels and I think you should take them in every list. And with that, I think you actually shouldn't focus on buffing this too much unless you definitely need to take out that one vehicle or one monster. It's absolutely critical for you to win the game, or to prevent your opponent from scoring points, or to make sure you do score points, etc., etc. In that case, begin that investment and have those options available to give this the orders, give it Daring Recon, and then hopefully hit on 2s or 3s and knock your opponent's vehicle or monster out of the game. Especially if it's also an anti-vehicle unit. That's something good to kind of keep in mind. That's it. I mean, keep it back. Don't let it get touched, and shoot out and just smash something apart. The other thing is, too, to keep in mind, if your opponent isn't running a monster vehicle heavy list, you may actually want to have this more midfield, potentially. Context always matters. Each army, each list you're up against, each detachment they're using. But with OC3, you could grab objectives, and that may be a great way to play this once you've kind of smashed apart your opponent's vehicles and monsters. You may want to just jut this out there, grab a midfield objective with it, or have it kind of back up your infantry in that manner and hold down the fort. And that's actually something I used to do back in the day with like Manticores that only have 4 shots that you would run out in 9th and 8th edition, and then you would just run out and grab an objective with them. And that was a great strategy, and I think you could kind of do the same thing with the Vanquisher here in 10th edition. Once it's done its job and it really doesn't have a whole lot of other great targets, consider moving it. Drive it out. It's got 10-inch movement, for crying out loud, and that's if you don't give it move. So reach out there and grab those objectives, advance it and so forth, and jump onto things with it. And I think that's something your opponent may not anticipate you doing unless they're also watching my unit reviews. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind with this, make it a backup unit. You could also, and I do advocate for this, screen with this. Okay? So say you've done your 2 shots, you've taken down Mauler Fiend or other type of monster vehicle from your opponent's list. They don't have anything else that you really need this to take out. Okay, run up and have this charge your opponent's objective secured infantry that are currently not on an objective. You have now tied them up, while your infantry can then move in safely and capture that objective or keep hold of the one they already have, right? So say your opponent's coming in around the corner of a building and they're going to try to take something away from your infantry, and this is nearby, move it up and then charge your opponent. So just tar pit them, literally. That is such a viable strategy. If you could deny your opponent 5 points, if you're doing competitive play, that could be a victory. And that's a great kind of tactical flexibility that these types of durable vehicles can offer you in the moment. So don't think about this so narrow-mindedly as, well, it just sits back and shoots. No, it can do a few different things, a few different roles, depending on the matchup, depending on how the game is going. So keep that in mind. You don't have to be so narrow-minded about the Vanquisher. And it does have some adaptability during your gameplay. All right, that's it. That's all I got for today. So I hope you all have enjoyed this unit review. I hope you've been enjoying all of them. If you have, please like and subscribe. Really appreciate each and every one of you coming here and enjoying the content and engaging with me down in the comments below. If there's anything I've missed, please put it down in the comments. Let's have a dialogue about it. Let's talk about all these amazing units in the Astra Militarum and how they can serve us as generals in our gameplay. I love to hear from you all and all the things that I might have missed during my unit review or things I may not have considered. So, as always, have fun wargaming. And remember, Cadia stands.